Hope this doesn't put you off your breakfast if you're having it at the moment. Our reporter David Allison has been looking at what can get stuck in your computer keyboard after it was reported that Apple is researching some crumb-resistant versions.
The notion of a leisurely lunch in a nice restaurant or cafe might be a nice idea, but for many of us it simply doesn't happen. The pressures of modern office life can often mean that any refuelling is done at the same desk at which you work. And in a world of hot desking, that can also mean a keyboard you share with many other people. Sorry if you're having your breakfast, but as well as crumbs of this and that, you'll probably find dust and hair, even flakes of skin. Research for the consumer magazine Which found that up to 10% of keyboards contained enough bacteria to constitute a health hazard. Some people even bring in special devices, including compressed air canisters or brushes, for cleaning the keyboard they're going to use. And that's it. It's a sort of vacuum cleaner, Vicky.
And I didn't seek it out myself. I was given it.
So let's have a go. Let's see what it does.
Okay, right. Not very much. Maybe
I think you need to bang it. That's a tried and tested way. So now you're basically hoovering your desk.
It's a bit rubbish, isn't it? Oh, but wee bits are soaking up.
It would appear the problem is so widespread across the world's offices that Apple is researching crumb-proof keyboards, as well as protective flaps and cleaning brushes. The tech giant has reportedly filed a patent for a keyboard that can survive crumbs and coffee spills. In computer hardware engineering speak, they want to prevent contaminant ingress, and it's been prompted by complaints from some MacBook laptop users that keys get sticky from dirt or crumbs because the keys only depress a tiny amount, making it harder to clear anything that gets caught in the keyboard. You're almost certainly sharing lunch in ways you never intended.
I hope that's the desk you sit at and not me.
Hope not. Anyway, has Apple come up with the answer? Well, Guy Cocker is a technology expert from Stuff magazine. Good morning, Guy.
Morning.
It all does sound a bit gross, doesn't it? You've had a look at what Apple are up to, though. Can anything keep the crumbs out of the keyboard?
Yeah, it's a bit of a gross story, this one, when you sort of turn your keyboard upside down and loads of debris and junk just comes out of it. But yeah, Apple files a lot of patents each year. You know, they filed about 2,000 patents in 2016. But this is an interesting one because it's not only an issue that sort of annoys a lot of people who are not just germ phobic, but just, you know, don't like stuff clogging up their keyboard in general. But it's also an important one for Apple, who sort of, they don't release a lot of stats on the faults that they experience with their MacBook line of computers, but you can see from the computer itself, it's the most sort of it's the most vulnerable area of the computer in terms of stuff that can get into it. So anecdotally, the people that work at its Genius Bar, the sort of the place at their store where they fix computers, they've said that they've had a lot of experience, up to about 5 to 10% of their MacBooks actually failing because stuff gets jammed into the keyboard, and the space bar in particular is pretty vulnerable. And that's because there's only a couple of millimeters between the actual keyboard and how much it depresses. So if anything gets stuck in there, it means that the computer can fail and that they've got to fix it, which is very expensive to do. And so the patent that they've put through there's a couple of patents. One is that it removes the gaps between the keys so that crumbs just can't enter in the first place. Now, the problem with that, some office workers, I'm sure, that are listening will have had those keyboards that are kind of covered in a plastic coating. And it doesn't make it as satisfying to type on, and it can get just as clogged up and gross as a standard keyboard. Mm-hmm. The second patent that Apple's come up with is more interesting and more novel. It's a membrane underneath that actually blows out air every time a key is pressed.
Gosh, so that sounds certainly like a more novel idea. Or then we could just not eat over our desks, I suppose.
It'll never catch on.
That's Guy Cocker.
That's it from us. Here's Stephen.